Now, parents always want the best for their children. That's a given. Well, that's why I guess parents spend a lot of money to put their children through private schools if they can afford it. And why do they do so? It's to give them the best start in life. They think that would give them an advantage in life from putting them through private schooling. Though, and a lot of us or a lot of other parents that can't afford that, feel that they're letting their kids down by not being able to give them that head start in life. However, that's not necessarily the case. Not necessarily the best thing. Private schooling is not the be all and end all. You see, there is an even bigger advantage that they can give their kids without spending any money at all. And what is that? Well, that is to teach them life experience. I find it really strange that lots of parents don't. They don't do that. So I guess, and they think, oh, paying all this money and putting them through private school is enough. But what is the thinking? They don't teach them anything else. So what is the thinking there? Is the thinking that their obligation is just to raise them until they're physically big and then leave them to sink or swim? Really? I mean, look at this. Just think back when you were young, when you were at that age of their children. How much did you know about life? You know? And wouldn't it be an advantage for you if you knew about life experience? I mean, a lot of us think back and we think to ourselves, if only we knew what we know now, back then when we were that age, then that would have given us such a big advantage in life. And so remember, your kids are now in that exact same position now as you did before. So why not teach them that? Obviously, we cannot go back in time. It'd be great if we had a time machine and go back and tell our younger selves, maybe, at 20 years of age, all the knowledge that we've accumulated through our lifetime, told ourselves back then. Just imagine the head start we would have been able to have. I mean, the advantage. We have advanced knowledge that you'd gain throughout life while only starting out life with the youth. There is a saying that youth is wasted on the young. Now, why do they say that? They say that because I know all this knowledge, but the kids don't know anything, but they have the advantage of youth. So it's wasted on them. However, it won't be wasted on them if we were to pass on our knowledge to them. Now, like I said, look, parents have been through the road before, okay, as in gone through life and knowing all the pitfalls. But so just imagine, though, you've been through that road before. You know where all the pitfalls are, all the potholes is, what to avoid. But then you don't tell the next person all the pitfalls of it when it's their turn to go through it. And it's like, they'll feel, you've been through that road before. You knew all the stuff that you need to avoid. Why didn't you tell me? What an ass. Why didn't you tell me that so I could have avoided that? And that's the sort of thing. I mean, how many of us look back on our lives and think, gee, I wish someone had told me about all that. Then it would have helped me so much. So parents, look, a lot of parents, I guess, justify that or may genuinely even think that, they don't say it because their kids won't listen. Okay, there's no point in telling them they won't listen. Yeah, and I've heard that a lot of times. However, this is where explaining is very important. You need to explain so that they do listen And if you do explain, they will listen. Just think, someone might put out some statement and you go, I don't agree with that. Oh, what's that all about? Don't listen. But if they had explained to you, sat down and explained to you why it's like that, you're most likely to listen. But I guess in parents' defense, they don't know that they need to explain, and also they don't know how to explain. Okay, just think of this analogy, and this is how you can explain to your children. Just think of a mother lion. A mother lion, in order to make sure her cubs survive, teaches her cubs how to hunt so they can survive. A mother bird would teach its hatchlings how to fly and how to find food so they can survive. But why, as humans, parents don't do that? I have to put out there, we're less caring than animals in the animal kingdom, that we don't want to make sure that our children have the skills to survive, and survive through life. Which then comes to another question, obviously, is what should you be teaching? Yes. What should you be teaching your kids? Okay, so tell them the analogy in the first place about the mother lion and the mother bird. That's why it's easy for them to understand if you give them that analogy. The thing you should be teaching is life skills. And life skills is something that they cannot learn elsewhere. No school is going to teach it. Okay, and maybe if the kids are able to get a mentor, if you can, the parents firstly pay for it, or know someone that's willing to take on that mentor role. So why don't parents take that role themselves and teach their children all that they've learned and accumulated throughout their lifetime? And of course, it's knowledge that can only be gained through going through life and learning from past experience and past mistakes that you've made. Very simple things like, how do you determine who you can trust and who you can't? All right, you might have gone through life and had that experience, and then you're, okay, and now I know not to trust someone like that. Now I could see in retrospect, what the red flags were that I should have picked up on so as to not trust that person. So your child is not going to know that until they go through and experience that themselves before they gain that knowledge. Wouldn't it be an advantage to tell your children beforehand? And so tell them, and then they can get that knowledge so they can avoid having to go through that, because learning is very expensive. All these, when you learn through life and going through experiences, it costs you a lot to learn. Not just through them, it's through money. It might have cost you because you trusted that person when you shouldn't have, and it ended up costing you either through fraud or being trickery or whatever, or you lost your job because of some work colleague that did a number on you. And that's another thing that you can teach your child, is what the workplace involves, how it works, and what you can expect. There's all sorts of politics in the workplace, and it can be very, very toxic. And in certain workplaces, it's actually rather so toxic that would say the weak don't survive, in terms of the very trusting don't survive, naive don't survive, and the people that don't understand that, or the pitfalls of it, what to look out for, and whether or not that's an environment where you have to keep watching your back, or an environment where it's okay and people are likely to be whether or not you can tell that workplace is something that you can trust. You can be relaxed and be comfortable comfortable in. You don't have to put your guard up, so to speak. A lot of parents, look, we've all been to the workplace, and a lot of us have been through some really nasty ones, some really toxic workplaces, I can say. I think a lot of our listeners would be there nodding their head. Yeah. So why wouldn't you teach your children about that? Why wouldn't you forewarn them about that and pass on your knowledge and what you've experienced going through that? You know, a very important thing to teach them is how to navigate the workplace and workplace politics. As we all know, it gets played there. Okay, and the games that are played there. And we all know there's sociopaths out there. And these are something that career advisors never mention, either because they've just been working in one place as a teacher or whatever it is, they don't experience it themselves personally, or, which I think more likely the case, they don't want to scare the kids off going work and confuse them actually, because when they're only just starting out in life and they're young and they're naive, they have nothing, no frame of reference in order to understand it. They wouldn't understand it. It was just being told like that. I guess, yes, you can say then it's going to be difficult for your child to understand that. But as a parent, you can tell them what you've been through, or give a certain situation at work. I did this and this is what someone else did. Or someone tried to stab me in the back by trying to set me up. Or this is the signs. This is what happened to me. And looking back, this is the sign that that person was given off, that I was going to have a problem with them. So these are things that you can teach your child about because it's happened to you. And also, a lot of this toxic environment, it happens everywhere, but most often happens in corporate, because you're in a closed office situation. Everyone tries to get noticed by the boss, and so they would get more chance of climbing the career ladder and getting promotions. I think we have all come across something like that at one stage or another. And you know what? You yourself would know your child the best. So you would yourself would be able to tell whether or not your child is suited to that environment. And if you don't think they're suited to that environment, that corporate life, then you need to tell them then that. And because you know whether or not your child's got enough teeth to cope with that sort of environment. And this is if your child does not know what they want to do in life, then a great way to ask them is, what age do you want to retire at? That would get your child thinking, how long do they want to keep working for? Because when you know what age, when you tell them, they tell you what age they want you to retire at, then you can work backwards to know and figure out how much money they need to earn to be able to retire at that age. And lots of kids don't understand that and want to do special interest careers. They might be interesting but pay very little. So this is a great way of actually smacking reality into their face, so to speak. So if you ask a child or a teenager, what age do you want to retire at? Most often than not, they're going to pick a very young age. I mean, I heard from one 20-year-old boy to me, he wants to retire at 30. First of all, he told me, when I asked him about his career, what career he wanted to do, he said, doesn't need to earn much money. Then I said, okay, what age do you want to retire at then? He said 30. So if you're 20, you want to retire at 30, how much money do you think you'll have to make? Then he realized, a lot. So either you have to make a lot of money then. Okay, choose a career that'll make a lot of money if you want to retire at 30. Or if you don't, you're happy, you don't want to strive too hard and just earn a little bit, then you're going to have to work for longer, possibly up until you retire. And seeing the way it's going, probably 70 years old by the time that you can retire and be on the pension if it's available in the future, if it's going to be available then. So that's one way to get around it. And you need to make them understand that there are studies out there that lead to nowhere. And you cannot get a job except for teaching it again to a later class. And an example I put is gender studies. Okay. I know a lot of people that teach it and are studying it would disagree, but come on, what type of career can you get with gender studies? I guess teaching gender studies later on to later classes. Which leads to a very important subject, and that is money skills. Now, whether or not we like it, money is very important to survival. It's a means of getting resources, offer choices and options in life. And you know what? It leads to less stress because financial stress is very toxic. And the less stress you have, the better your health would be. The more stress you are under, the worse your health would be. And what do parents want for their kids? Want them to be healthy, happy, and well looked after. Yeah? And so for that you need to make sure that your children are equipped to navigate life. And one of it is being able to earn money. That is the reality. Because look, if you yourself have been in financial hardship, you would know how bad it is. Would you want your children to go through that as well? Think about it back. I mean, a lot of people now are under financial stress with the economic conditions we have now. Do you want your child to go through that as well, or be able to avoid that? And if you had knowledge of what you know now, back then when you started in life at say age 20, you would have been able to with that knowledge, go leaps and bounds. You would have done things differently, if we are to admit it to ourselves. And the other thing is knowing how to save. All well and good, being able to earn the money, you also need to know how to save, how to hang on to that money. It's just like you have a pocket with a hole in it. No matter how much you fill that pocket, it's never going to be full because there's always a leak coming, leaking down the bottom. It never gets full. So you need to teach them how to save and why it's important to earn enough, not just to get by, but enough also to be able to put aside for a raining day. Have you ever heard of an old children's story called The Ant and the Grasshopper? This was an rather old children's story about the ant and the grasshopper. Now, in it, this was set in summer. The grasshopper was going around enjoying all the fruits of summer. Lots of abundance, didn't have a care in the world. And then he saw the ant laboring himself, storing food and harvesting. And the grasshopper was laughing at the ant and saying, "You should be enjoying yourself. There's plenty around." And the ant was telling the grasshopper, "Look, you should be storing for the winter that's coming. Yeah, this is your chance. If there's abundance, so you need to be storing." And the grasshopper, definitely not. They don't have to worry. Plenty of food around. And then autumn came, and the ant was going, "Look, winter's coming. Look, it's getting a bit late, but if you hurry and try hard, you can still make it for winter. You can still store enough food for winter." Grasshopper still wouldn't do it. And so then winter came. And the grasshopper was cold, shivering, and was starving. And then looked in where, and then saw a light, and came out from this little house, and looked in the window, and the ant was in there all snug and cozy and had plenty of food, while the grasshopper was outside looking in, starving. If only I had listened to the ant. But he really was starving, but was too proud to ask the ant for food and help. And then thought, if only I had listened and stored enough away. So, as with all children's story, there's always a moral to it and always a message. Is save for a rainy day, especially when there's abundance, because there's always going to be lean times ahead. And this is a story that we can all take from, and what parents should be teaching their children. And a big thing at the moment, especially with all those afterpays and going into pay first and buy first, get the goods and pay later. It's a debt trap. Really, they need to be teaching their children to, in order to avoid that, to live within your means. Avoid this debt trap. Avoid accumulating debt that you have to pay later, because not only then in the future you have to sacrifice the money that you earn in order to pay back this debt, but you have to pay back extra in the form of interest. And then it gets very hard, and then it compounds the issue, the problem compounds itself, and this burden gets bigger and bigger. And so they need to teach their children this very simple equation. Income minus expenses. If you can't earn enough, then you need to cut back on your expenses. It's also the little things that would make their lives easier. And only with that knowledge that can only be gained through experience. I'll tell you a very simple example. It's like keeping receipts from the car park. Say you went and paid for your car parking. Okay, and so presumably when you come out through the boom gate, it'll let you out because you've already paid. However, what if there is some sort of computer issue where it doesn't recognize that you paid and doesn't let you out? How are you going to dispute that? So it's best that you get receipts. Teach those little things. Also, like when you to the children to pay attention when you're paying something and getting to the change. Make sure you check the change, because it's a big more hassle if you've got a quibble about it. Okay? And just like with the car park, then you've got to dispute with them. They ask, well, if you said you paid, where's the evidence? Did you get a receipt? Then there's a big argument over it. So in order to avoid those headaches, take precautions. Look, and the thing is, you need to tell them things like, whatever task you're going to do, then work out what you're going to do to be able to get there. And look, I know you cannot teach them everything, as you don't know what and when that situation will come up, that will come across. So what you can do is you can teach the children, teach them to try, the skill generally is try to foresee what can go wrong before you do that, all the little things that can go wrong, so you can take an action to prevent that situation from happening. Because as parents, as you know, when you try to teach children, you can't foresee everything that can go wrong, or which I should say, every situation that they're going to encounter. You can tell them about things that you remember, situations that you can remember, but you're not going to be able to remember every situation, and you're not going to be able to anticipate what situations they're going to come across. So in order to, not to have to tell them this situation, and that's what you do to prevent it, or so forth, you tell them as a general act, try to foresee what can go wrong beforehand so that they can act to prevent the situation. Think about what affects a person's life the most. I'm saying the most. it's not career. It's not the career that they choose or where a person lives. It really is who they choose as their life partner, who they marry. I guess a lot of people don't realize that and they don't think of that. But think about it. Whatever career you choose, it affects your money and your work. And where you choose to live, I guess it affects your lifestyle. But they don't give much thought as to who they choose as their life partner, who they marry, so to speak. But they just think of, I like that person. I get along with that person, so I marry that person. However, who you choose to marry, who you choose as your life partner affects every facet of your life. You know, it affects, okay, your money, your health, your emotional well-being, and your career and general well-being. And I guess a lot of people that have been through divorces can attest to that. And saying they've not just financially, it's cost them, but they've been put through the emotional ringer. And especially if there are children involved as well. Little games get played as to access, if they're allowed access, so to speak. And it has wasted, and a lot of people that have been divorced and thinking, wasted so many years with someone that has basically ruined my life. Okay? And that's why it's so important. And parents, and I don't understand why with Western parents that they don't pass that knowledge on. Even divorced parents that been through such a bad ordeal. And I guess if you were asking that person that's been divorced, if knowing obviously knowing what they know now, they wouldn't have married that person in the first place. But though a lot of them now, when in retrospect, think back and said, yeah, this and this and this were red flags. I should have picked up on that. And so why don't you pass that on to your kids? You don't want you want the better life for them to have a better life than you do. So why don't you pass that on? See, this is the thing. Western parents don't get involved in their children's love life or advise them or make comments on who they choose to marry. And the thinking is, I guess, they'd rather not intrude. And because then the parents won't listen to them and it creates friction and so forth, that they're not happy with their child's partner and so forth. But they need to remember they've gone through all that, but their kids haven't. So they would have no idea. So you need to teach them that. What is a good partner and what isn't. And I have to tell you, this is one thing that Asian parents do, especially Chinese, that Western parents don't, is they get involved in their children's partner selections about who they should marry. And they have no issue with letting their kids know what they think about their partners, so to speak. They get involved whether it's welcomed or not. And they have life experiences, so they want to pass it on to their children. However, what the problem with them is it comes across more like commands rather than teaching. And they give it off like commands rather than teaching their kids and explaining why. And in their defense, I have to say, basically because they don't know that they need to teach. And also they don't know how to teach. They don't know how to explain. And that's I guess that is a weakness of all parents. People don't know how to explain. If you can explain properly, then children, not only children, I guess anyone would be willing to listen to you. And so you need to explain to your children. And I guess otherwise, if you leave it up to the kids, what will they do? They will just marry who they like. And then you hope that they haven't made a bad decision. And I guess a lot of parents, even though they may not be happy with their future son or daughter-in-law, keep their mouths shut because I don't want to rock the boat and upset people. But you have to think about your child. What's best for your child? Do you want to have your child to have a better life? And it's such a case where, a lot of people are surprised, and I was as well. I was one of the people that were surprised that arranged marriages, statistically, work out better than the ones where children have chosen themselves. Arranged marriage in the sense that the parents have had a hand in picking. Okay, I think you should marry that person, so to speak. And then I realized, well, why are they more successful? Why are there less divorces with those arranged marriage types than the ones where the children have freedom to choose or chose freedom, or wouldn't say they had freedom to choose, let's say they made the decision. It's because the parents are not emotionally involved. They're not in love with the other partner, so to speak, so they don't have that to cloud their judgment. And so they can make a rational decision. They know what qualities in a partner you need in life because they know they've been through life. They know what's trials and tribulations and what you're going to come across. And so what you need your partner to do to assist you in getting through that. And look, at the end of the day, if someone is helpful to you and able to help you get through things, one, you'll be happier because you haven't had that block you. You've had someone to assist you. And when someone's helped you to make your life better, naturally, you're going to feel grateful for them and feel pleased with them and love them. And also, parents know their child. They know what their child's like, and so they'll know what their child needs. So it seems to be such a cold decision, but it's such a rational decision. I know it's a very unromantic decision. And I guess society romanticizes marriage and love and that sort of thing. Nothing else matters, just love would matter. But what they don't do is they don't consider that that's all fine and well, but a marriage relationship or a life partnership is what you could call a created bond. Okay? Like a mother and child, that's a natural bond. The mother would love the child no matter what. But you fall in love with someone because of the things they do, they're able to do, and how they're able to help you. Okay, and they're nice and pleasant. You get on well, but in order for that love to continue, it has to be supported. So there needs to be less stress in your life, less pressure on the couple. So they're happy, and also that you're able to add value to each other's lives. Because if someone is able to add value to your life is better, and then you love them. You don't want to let them go. Because your life would be the poorer without them. And that is something that's very important. To make sure that, I wouldn't say make sure, it's something you can do that if you want to keep your partner. You want to hang on to them, you make sure you add value to their life. Because just think about it. If someone added value to your life, you're never going to leave them, would you? Why would you? Your life is better with them than without, than on your own. And that is what we should be striving for. That is how we can make a marriage last. And that is why, that is how you can have a great life. And Asian parents know this. They know if their child has a partner that would be supportive of them, if their child is supportive of them, life becomes easier for them and they can have a happy life. And that's what parents at the end of the day want. They want their child to have a happy life, be successful and happy and healthy. And part of being healthy is happiness and less stress. Because the less stress you have in your life, and the happier you are, you get have less health problems. And so you're healthier. And when you're healthier, you're happier. And when life is easier for you, the child is happier, has a happier life. So that had all that knowledge, that life experience that you passed on to them, and they've had that, say, 30 years of life knowledge and experience. They got that when they were 20 years old, and you've passed on to them. Imagine the advantage they would have. They would be able to do something with their life. It's like they had a head start in life. And the child would be so much more successful, so much more wealthier, and so much more happier. And as parents, again, I say, that's all I can confidently say. Every parent would want that for their child.